There's a lot going on with ill-equipped, inadequate, immature, emotionally detached parents. There is something going on at the core. It's a sad reality to have parents like this. In fact, there is some research that supports that emotionally immature and detached parents may engage in some very tricky and covert behaviors. One being what we call a process of covert incest. And that is also called emotional incest. And that is when, under the surface, there is something going on between the parent and the child, and the parent has started it, the parent has maintained it, and the parent has also normalized it. And so the child, or the adult child who is beneath this parent, right, trusting in them and, feeling safe and looking up to them, the parent is doing something that can destroy this innocent soul and mind, right? And it is a sneaky kind of emotional manipulation where the concept of mother and child or father and child is obliterated, right? And there's this new idea of the relationship, which is boyfriend, girlfriend, two parents taking care of a household, right? You're the dad that your siblings need. You're the mother that your sibling needs. Mom needs your love and compassion right now. I, as your father, don't have a girlfriend or a woman in my life. So I'm going to rely on my daughter to take care of my son, change his diapers, feed him, do his laundry, take him to daycare, be the first face he sees in the morning. These are called forms of emotional abuse and emotional neglect. It is also called emotional incest because there's a process by which emotional incest kind of sneakily creeps up in the parent-child relationship. There's a lot of adultification, so you're becoming a grown-up way too fast. There's a lot of parentification. If you have siblings, you are being the surrogate parent to these siblings, right? And you are held to that standard by the parent, whether it's easily seen or not. It's always covert. It's always under the surface. Emotional incest is basically the blurring of the appropriate boundary for the situation or in the situation. And it creates this unhealthy dynamic where the child or the adult child doesn't feel that they have the ability to survive outside of this unit. This is just life as usual. This is just normal for us. I never saw anything wrong with us, said a client that I saw 5 years ago who had dealt with emotional incest for many years. She had become her father's surrogate mother, right? And at other times she was his wife, cooking, cleaning, supporting his emotional breakdowns, getting a job when he said he couldn't work anymore because of an injury, using all of her hard-earned money. Instead of putting in her own bank account, she would put it directly in her father's bank account so that he could pay the bills, so that he could buy clothes for them in their house. The mortgage wasn't paid, so his daughter had to go and beg for money from grandma. And every month, she would see me for therapy, but she would also contact her grandmother and say, Grandma, we need money. Our mortgage is due next week. Where was her dad? Sleep, drunk, or with another woman. When a parent can take the innocence of a child, can take the freedom of an adult child, and distort it and skew it and change it into something that it should never be, it's a depressing reality. Sometimes you can be manipulated by these immature parents, these emotionally detached parents, in such a way that you don't realize when you're being abused. There's a such thing known as emotional blackmail, and you know what blackmail is. Add emotion to that equation, and you've got a situation where you're being given ultimatums, where you are being manipulated, where you are being told that something is going to happen this way or else, right? And in a situation where there's covert or emotional incest, dad or mom doesn't want this to get out, right? that you are emotionally being used as their therapist, as their, surrogate parent for your siblings, as their wife, as their husband. They don't want you to let that out. Your mom, your dad, your guardian, they don't want that to get out. So what do? They emotionally blackmail you. Manipulation, ultimatums, triangulation, right? Telling people that you're unstable, making you feel insecure, not very self-confident, not very strong as a human being, right? Why do that? Because you're going to get up the strength to say that something is wrong with this. And so they want to keep you bound. They want to keep you minimized. They want to keep you gaslighted. So we call this compliance deception. And compliance deception is this: that if you don't comply with my needs, with my wants, if you don't comply with the emotional incest and the emotional turmoil that I'm putting you in, then I'm going to do A, B, and C in return. So compliance deception is playing the victim. I am the victim. So if you don't do A, B, and C, then I will fill in the blanks, right? And a lot of the time, emotional blackmail is continued by using compliance deception and really cloaking themselves and making themselves come across as the victim. Now, there's something also known as ego hunger. And ego hunger is really a need for admiration. And in a situation where there's emotional blackmail, a need for admiration is at the core. Because maybe the parent is immature. Maybe the parent has low self-esteem. Maybe the parent was abused him or herself. So they're kind of grasping, for something to hold on to. They need an identity. And so their hunger, their ego hunger, is chasing you for that admiration. And so you better bow. You better show that you're in a moment of admiration towards this parent. You better thank them. You better praise them like they're a king or a queen. Because if you don't, there's going to be some backlash. Emotional blackmail can even occur systematically. There's certain steps. And here they are here on the screen. There's demand. There's resistance. There's stress. There's duplication. There's threat. And there is bowing. Or we can even say submission. And these are the systematic steps of emotional blackmail. In a very toxic family dynamic, there is disengagement, where the parent is emotionally and psychologically disengaged, and then there's also enmeshment, which complicates the issue, because then there's over-attachment, right? There's no balanced in between. There's no middle ground. There's no gray. It's all black and white. Disengagement or enmeshment. And that keeps the unhealthy situation just continuing on. And that's the sad reality. If you feel like you've experienced this with your own parent or somebody who raised you, then you definitely want to keep on watching. All right, guys, let's talk about the common issues here. Some of the common issues is conditional love and affection. You have to do something in order for this kind of parent to show you love and affection. It's just like putting a coin in a jukebox, for those of you who are around my age, and picking a song and feeling like, ooh, I was able to put a quarter in the machine and get my favorite song on. They are unstable parents, right? Mom or dad or both, who not only uses emotional incest to control you, but emotional blackmail at the same time. And so if you don't do what they want you to do, if you don't appear the way that they want you to appear, then you're not going to get love and affection, praise, right? Hugs, compassion, none of that. The other thing is there's often threats of abandonment with these kind of parents. I'm going to leave out the door. You're never going to have me again. Look at what you've done. When you see me walk out of that door, don't think I'm coming back. You may also experience your parent treating you as if you're a best friend to them. I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. You're my best friend. So let's talk about all kind of stuff. There's no innocence of a child that still remains in most cases. Why? Because mom or dad feels like you're their friend. And so all subjects and topics are talked about. Even sexual things. Perverted things. Right? weapons and murder, and the list goes on. So you lose your innocence, you lose your freedom, you lose that free-spirited child mindset and laughter and happiness that you should have. So you lose out on a childhood, to be very honest. You may also notice parental jealousy. Emotional incest involves that parent becoming jealous that you're dating, becoming jealous that you're married or engaged, becoming jealous that you're pregnant, becoming jealous that you're beautiful and independent and making tons of money, right? That's because there's enmeshment. There's no space for individuation. But there's a lot of enmeshment. And so the parent becomes jealous, of your progress, your success, the list goes on. There's borderline odd behaviors with these people. See both of these videos right up here at the end. Come back, rewind it, and click on those videos so that you can see what I talked about live regarding these two things. But these are definitely precursors to borderline odd behavior. And sometimes, you will get that. There's often too much information on various topics. If you say, hey, mom and dad, what brought you guys together? How did you meet? Well, mom's going to tell you she was drunk and had an affair with 7 different men on her ex-husband. And while she was having an affair with all 7 of those guys, she ran into your dad, who was drunk outside of a bar laying on the ground. She helped him get up. They kissed each other, and she realized they were meant to be together. Right? You didn't need all those details. But with parents who are, engaged in emotional incest or blurring of the boundary, you are likely to hear that kind of stuff with them. There is no boundary there. And I've had parents like this in private practice, and even when I worked in the public sector. There were situations where the parent would talk about their sex lives, or they would talk about their bodies a certain way, or they would talk about, pornography openly in front of their kids. And I just remember thinking, what gives you that ability to do that? And even that right, that's a personal place for most people. Let's respect that. But she didn't respect that. One of the parents that I had a couple years ago, because there was a lot of situations where there was too much information. There was a lot of situations where boundaries were blurred. And it was really a nightmare. They may also rely on you for emotional support, right? They want you to be their emotional support. They're going to kick your door down, sit on your bed and start crying, ask you for advice, do all the things they can think to do to get their emotional needs met. Now, let me also say in this category of common behaviors, there's also the behavior where there's this silent kind of abuse, right? It's hard to identify, and the parent knows that. But what are they going to do? Well, they're going to continue to abuse you, but they're going to do it in a silent way. I'm going to do it over the weekend so that the kid's not going to get up the next day and go to school and say anything. Or I'm going to do it when we're on vacation with the entire family and having a good time, because my daughter or my son is not going to think to bring up anything that's inappropriate when we're all having fun. So there's a lot of pre-calculation with these kinds of parents. They're unstable. They are darkened in their heart, mind, and soul. And a lot of them also have trauma histories and bad behaviors that never got taken care of. And so there they are in the world having their own children, which is you, and they're destroying every bit and piece of who you are that they can. Emotional abuse also entails, according to research, the prioritization of the parent over you. So they have prioritized themselves over you. And so therefore they are here and you are here. And so you're going to get stamped on, you're going to get manipulated, reality is going to get skewed and distorted, and life is going to change for you. There's a lot of adultification and parentification here. There's silent abuse, meaning that it's going to be very hard for other people to pinpoint it, prove it, and get it reported. It is not an easy thing to do. And sadly, we're in a system where there's inexperienced people, there's people that are just now getting into the field from school, and there's also individuals who are burned out, tired, or just simply don't care. So you have these cases on the desk, right? And it's a very serious, extensive, comprehensive report, which is the reports that I tend to report to Child Protective Services. and they don't get the attention that they need. And there's often a lot of dominance and control, which is where the jealousy and the envy comes from. They want to control your life, control what you have access to, control how you look, control how you talk, how you behave, whatever they need to do. All right, guys, so let's talk about the impact on you. There's a lot of impact here, but I'm going to break it down just briefly. The number one thing that you are likely to see is an absence, I'll put it that way, it's an absence of the process of individuation. Individuation, as you see here on the screen, is really the process by which we grow with our families over time. We kind of, take on thoughts and the feelings and behaviors of those around us. We take on their opinions. We do things that are similar to all the people around us, right? And that would be family. But reality is this, that over time, we begin as individuals, right, to develop our own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, the way we want to dress, the way we want to present ourselves, the money we want to make, the kind of things we occupy ourselves with, right? That is the process of individuation. It is literally, in this demonstration here, it's pulling away from the family unit so that you can go over here and do what you want to do. Well, there's no normal process of individuation because the roles have been reversed. There's emotional incest, which in and of itself has a way of reducing your emotional and psychological maturity. And then there's emotional blackmail, which really kind of grabs you at the ankles, right? Like a pair of cuffs. There's also no process of self-determination. Self-determination is that I have a clear sense of self, and this is who I'm going to be. And so as a result, I'm going to do this. There's no time in your life to do any of that. So you may find that you're pretty much behind. There's also the burden of FOG, which Susan Forward came up with the acronym FOG, right? Fear, obligation, and guilt. And that is very much in there. There may also be some confusion and conflicting messages, right? Am I loved by you or am I not? Is this emotional incest the result of a close bond between the two of us? Or is this manipulation? So you can have a lot of confused thoughts, feelings, and even your own behaviors can be quite confused. Keep in mind that you're likely to feel duped as an individual because your mind and your heart over the past few years or growing up took on information and experiences that your brain was not equipped to deal with. And so because of that, it's going to take some time to unwind that damage and get to a place where you're feeling sturdy again, right? Because you weren't equipped to deal with what that parent put on you in the first place. There is also a mismatch of reality with maturity. So you may act like a grown-up, or maybe as a child, you acted really grown-up. The reality is that your emotional maturity did not equal your chronological maturity. And so one piece of the maturity is up there, which is your age, those numbers. But the other piece of that maturity is completely down, right? Because you didn't have that process of developing and growing in a way that is healthy because of everything that this unstable parent did to you. You may also find that you're overly independent and have this edge of perfectionism. If I can't do this the way that I want to do it, then it doesn't matter, right? So then you can develop what we call obsessive compulsive personality disorder. You can also, over time, develop certain traits of narcissism, right? It's my way or the highway. And that's a very sad reality, right? But this is the damage that these kind of parents do. You may also notice cyclic behaviors. So you kind of keep pedaling on that same wheel, even though you want to get off. You keep pedaling, and you get absolutely nowhere, right? It's like riding a stationary bike, but that's all you've got because of everything that this parent has tried to do to you. Stay tuned and stick around for my live chat coming up this Friday and Saturday. I think you're going to really like those live chats, so I look forward to seeing you then. All right, guys, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.